Hey y'all, I'm Karen Mayer Cunningham, the special education boss. If you've ever felt confused, overwhelmed, or just plain frustrated at the 504 IEP table, you are in the right place. Every week, I'm breaking down the rules, the rights, and the realities of special education so you can walk into meetings informed, empowered, and ready to make real change. And whether you're a parent, a teacher, an advocate, a school-based member, or somebody who's just trying to do right by a student, this podcast gives you straight talk, real answers, and tools that you can use immediately. I'm not here to play politics. I'm not here to play sides. I'm here to train people who sit at the table and teach you how to follow the law, ask the right questions, and protect the rights of students. So go ahead and hit subscribe, share this with a friend, and you know what? Meet me back here every single week. We're not just talking about change. We're making it. Because when you know better, you do better. And when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody. Hey, y'all. Welcome back. Karen Mayer Cunningham, special education boss, training everyone that sits at the 504 IEP table to navigate and negotiate successful student outcomes. First, if you haven't gotten it, you might have already gotten it, but go ahead and order the Epic IEP. We have just finished it. It will launch in a few months, and we are having bonuses for those of you that pre-order. It's going to be amazing. Get one for you and get one for another family that really needs support. So it is a powerful playbook for parents, educators, and advocates navigating the special education process. It is the exact same framework that I use to serve every one of the families that I serve and to train people to be full-time advocates. So go get that. Go to Amazon, order your book, and come back to the epic-iep.com. Put in your information, and it will release your $500 worth of bonuses. We want you to get you like bonuses, don't you? So the Epic IEP, that's what we want to write so kids have amazing outcomes. So kind of the topic today is dismissing members of the IEP team. And I think that comes very often with certain members of the IEP team reaching out to the parents ahead of time, which is great. We want that, right? We want collaboration. We want information ahead of time. But often I'll get in a meeting and I'll hear, we talk to mom, right? And mom has excused the speech language pathologist. Mom has excused the psychologist. Mom has excused the adaptive physical education teacher. And what's happened is those related service providers who we love have reached out to the parent ahead of time, shared the present levels, shared the IEP goals, talked about progress, and said they're going to keep the minutes exactly the same. And there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when you get into a meeting, if we get information from another team member that gives us a purview that we didn't have before, and we might need to increase or even decrease support minutes, even if we all agreed, we cannot do that without that team member there, right? So let's say that we get in the meeting, we realize that, Billy is crushing it at articulation, and he doesn't need, 20 minutes every week. We think that 15 minutes every other week would be a great rate, but we can't even reduce minutes, much less increase them if the SLP is not there. So let's talk about the 5 stakeholders in the IEP under IDEA. So the 5 stakeholders that are required by law are, number 1, the parent. The parent is the first stakeholder in federal law, and they are considered the expert in case law. And nobody knows more about the child than the parent, guardian, or surrogate parent. So that's number 1. Number 2, a general education teacher, one of your child's general education teachers. And certainly if your child is in a self-contained setting, or they don't have a general ed teacher, or even if they're a homebound student, we're still required to have a general ed teacher in your class, your student's class and grade level. Okay. Number 3, at least one of your child's special education teachers. And so we want a special education teacher that's instructing your child. Often we have a case manager show up, which is great, but they might be overseeing the paperwork and not actually working directly with the student. Number 4, a district representative. We would call them an LEA representative. So the LEA is the local education agency. The SCA is the state education agency. So the LEA rep is almost always going to be a principal, an assistant principal, a vice principal, a principal of principals. And sometimes in some school districts, there's credentialing for the LEA rep could be a counselor if they have the right certification. But the LEA rep is the person that ultimately can make decisions if we all have different positions and a viewpoint, and what they say represents the school district. And then number 5, someone that is an expert who can interpret results of standardized instruments and answer questions about them. So a person that could answer questions about diagnostic instruments that have been used to evaluate your child. Now, additional IEP members would be If your student receives dyslexia, if they receive a related or instructional service under IDEA, physical therapy, occupational therapy, counseling as a related service, music therapy, in-home parent training, and all the rest. And so we want to make sure not to excuse them. Once we get in the meeting, we're really able to go through the present levels, robust present levels that are pristine, prescriptive, and puffy. Then we'll get a really good snapshot of what's going on with this kiddo, and if we need to consider making adjustments in IEP goals, supports, accommodations, or service minutes. So do not dismiss somebody from an IEP meeting until the meeting has occurred. Now, certainly, if you are going to dismiss somebody, you can do it two ways legally. Number one, you can do it in writing prior to the IEP meeting. This is Mrs. Smith. I'm going to dismiss Mr. Johnson, the adaptive physical education teacher for Levi, in our IEP meeting. Or you can do it in the meeting. At this point, we don't have a need for Mr. Johnson going forward in the meeting, and we would dismiss him. So often we'll get in a meeting and there'll be a CTE rep, right? Career technology. And that's for input on, what's the path that they're going to take in high school to acquire their credits, and, what sort of track are they on? Often they share their information at the beginning of the meeting, and the parent literally has no questions for them. They don't write services. They don't write goals. They provide input. So often that's somebody at the beginning of the meeting that we might dismiss, but keep everybody in the IEP meeting until we have the information that we know to plan for the student for the next annual IEP meeting. Okay. All right. Questions of the day. And we get hundreds of questions every day. I wish that we had time to sit and answer every single one of them. We certainly do our best to get to them. So questions of today. So my high school student's principal told the other students that my child has special needs as an explanation for his social awkwardness. And obviously word spread among the students. He has multiple diagnoses and a 504. This has to be legal. What recourse do we have? So, one of the things that we say at the beginning of a 504 meeting or an IEP meeting is that this meeting is confidential and it only pertains to people that have an educational need to know about it. So disclosing publicly in front of peers and other adults somebody's need for special education support, whether it's an IEP or a 504, would be unethical. It would be improper. And I would certainly reach out to the district to try to get that remedied. Next, is it illegal to not hold a 504 meeting when a student's new to the school and coming from a different country? So when a student is coming from another country, we have to assess their educational needs. And we're looking at special factors, often students that are not inherent English learners or have not received the same kind of education, or maybe if they're a foster student, or they are the education that they've received doesn't line up with the state standards we have to look at that. But we don't need to have a 504 meeting immediately. If we know that the student has a disability and they're in need of accommodations, we can write that up. But if you've requested the meeting and there's an identified disability, we should be reasonable in setting that meeting. Next, what would some accommodations for a third grader that has severe PTSD, ADHD, and reactive attachment need? We adopted my son from foster care, and this year he is associating the teacher with his biological father. The teacher is very firm, and when she gets upset, uses an aggressive tone. I want my child to try to stay in the class because he's blossoming academically, but scared of his teacher and doesn't want to go to school. He also is having nightmares at night and uptick of behaviors. So a couple of things are going on here. We want him to stay in the class because he's blossoming academically. So when we look at a child, we're not talking about an academic need. We're always talking about an educational need. And so when we talk about an educational need, that has to include emotions, behavior, communicative style, communication goals, related service, any of those needs. And so those are, three pretty big disabilities, right? PTSD, reactive attachment, and ADHD. So, his goals would be around the characteristics of those neurological concerns or disorders. And so I would just make sure that we've sat down, that we have a robust IEP to serve him, and that when there's a need that comes up, that we address it. And so, if a teacher's being too firm with a student, period, the only way that they're going to know that is if you had a parent-teacher conference or reach out to the principal and see what we can do to sort of mitigate the impact for that child. All right, next question. Is it possible to get access to your paraprofessional webinar? It is possible that we are having another paraprofessional webinar. It was so crazy populated. So we will be having a paraprofessional webinar. Let me see. I think I've already figured out what the dates are, but since you're here right now and we're looking, it will probably be in 2 weeks because paraprofessional concerns are the biggest questions that we get. So that'll be the week, one of the nights in the week of November 3rd. So probably the 4th, 5th, or 6th. We'll put graphics everywhere, but everybody's invited. Paraprofessionals, what are their limitations, their expectations, and their roles as they support general ed and special education teachers. So we will have another paraprofessional webinar coming to you in 2 weeks. Next, my 6th grade child with an active IEP has experienced ongoing bullying since August, including about 8 incidents involving students and the staff. There's also been a breach of confidentiality regarding his diagnosed disabilities and teacher case manager mocking for reporting the bullying. I've reported these incidents to the school site and district offices and have paused his in-person attendance due to safety concerns while exploring alternate instruction. What would you recommend in this situation? So first, I'm so sorry that's happening. Maybe that you need to reach out to somebody higher in the district to see if they can remedy it. One of the things that happens with our kiddos with disabilities or kiddos, period, that are bullied is that I think parents are often not aware when a child reports bullying, then the child moved to another campus because they don't usually move the bully, because if the bully had friends, then that could come back to, on the student that reported it. So I certainly am in agreement with you that I wouldn't send my child somewhere it was unsafe. But I would certainly reach out to the executive director of special education, the executive director of education, and assistant superintendent over that campus and see what we can do to mitigate this, because we need to all be safe and supported when we go to school. Next, good evening. I have a student teacher assigned to my classroom, and while she completes her degree in education, the lead special education teacher told me today that since she's in there, that counts towards my students for minutes for special education. I have never heard of this before. It was brought up when I questioned why my students are not getting all their special ed minutes that's required in their IEP. The special education para that's assigned to my room has missed so many days of school that my kids are not getting their required weekly minutes. Is this true? So the question is it true that a student teacher fulfills the special education minutes? No, it's not true. The only person that can fill the special education minutes are a certified special educator in your state. Next, I think it's time for me to take this formal. My son's not getting an education due to negligence of his school help. So, if you need support, we have advocates. We have a team of advocates that we represent families from the Kodiak Islands in Alaska to Miami-Dade County in Florida. So you can reach out to us for support at advocate@specialeducationacademy.com, advocate@specialeducationacademy.com. And really, one of the things that's great that we train weekly is the Epic IEP Academy, which we have every Monday night. It's an hour of training on about 20 minutes of training on federal law in series that I do. And then we open it up for questions. So it's $97 a month to invest. It's, you can stay as long as you want. We have hundreds and hundreds of hours archived on past trainings. So you can resource those videos and get the information that you need to serve kids at the highest level. What do I do about a kid who can't stay awake in my class? So, sleeping during your class is really one of those things for me that would trigger child find. While kids are sleepy and teenagers are growing and all those things, that could be a characteristic of something much more serious. So if a child was nonstop sleeping in my class, I would ask for an evaluation for consideration of a suspected disability. I would ask for psych services. You can receive psych services at any school at any time, whether you're gen ed, special ed 504. And then I would look at, in that evaluation, look at his educational needs and if there's a need for in-home parent training as well. All right. Next, my son is a PCSSD in North Little Rock, Arkansas. He has an IEP that he leaves class 5 minutes early to avoid the chaos in the hallway. Recently, a teacher refused to let him go early because she felt that he had wasted his time and needed to finish the assignment. So she did not let him go. Did she violate his IEP? Not only did she violate his IEP, she violated his civil rights. So that would be an accommodation. Really important for us to know when we have a plan or a program. So if you have a 504 plan or an individualized education program, those both have civil rights in them called accommodations. And when you deny a child their accommodations, we absolutely file under the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights. And so, I would reach out to leadership and see if she could let that teacher know that that's not acceptable, and to make sure that his IEP is implemented as codified and with fidelity. Next, can I have somebody help with accommodations for my son's 504? He's now a freshman in high school and plays in the band, which he loves, but his grade is based on, but it's grade based. Please help. Yeah. So again, if you're looking for representation, just reach out to us at advocate@specialeducationacademy.com. Next question. I'm desperate for help. My child's a freshman in high school. He's getting great grades except for algebra. Me too. Algebra is tough. When I emailed the special education teacher, she assured me he was not taking his time and etc. When I messaged the algebra teacher, she essentially said that he was rushing and blamed him for his shortcomings. I am at a loss. So, we have to intervene when there's an educational need. So I don't know if your child already has an IEP, but sometimes an educational need presents later in life. It doesn't necessarily present in second or third grade. So I would ask for an evaluation to look at suspected disability. Areas of suspected disability would be learning and attention issues, and ask to come in and sign notice and consent. All right. Next question. Can an opportunity center use a 504 on a student that had not had one previously, only to receive transportation? So transportation is a related service under IDEA. Some districts will use that for transportation, but really related and instructional services are supposed to be under special education. But if they need the 504 to get the transportation, if that's the workaround that they need, I would be fine with that. And next, but last but not least, I teach general ed in the state of Florida. One of my students has gone through the MTSS process, case review, and is now being made eligible for ESE services. The student's working on a third grade level in fifth grade. He has some social emotional goals that need to be addressed as well. Can the student be placed in a self-contained classroom, or does it have to remain in the general ed classroom? Is there a law that prevents the district from changing its placement to a self-contained classroom? So here's the deal, my love. There's a thing in the middle between general ed and inclusion and self-contained. It's under 300.115, 300.115 in the federal code. So you would just go to ECFR, and that would bring up the electronic code of federal regulations. And under Part B, you would put in 300.115. And so one of the supplementary aids and services that we provide for kids with disabilities is resource. So that is a room for kiddos that are academically behind a few years, and they need a slower, cadence and prosody, less of the state standards, and really targeting those important pieces in that content area without being obligated to do the totality, the depth and the breadth of the state standards. So we have general ed with support, general ed with special ed support, general ed with inclusion, we have resource, and then we have self-contained. So be sure that we're not violating his LRE by not discussing a continuum of services. So we love you. Remember, go get the book, run on over to Amazon and get the Epic IEP. It comes out in just a few weeks, and we're so excited for you guys to have it. It's for educators, parents, and advocates navigating the special education process. It's really going to be life-giving to you as you serve kids at the highest level. Remember, you get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody. We'll see you guys in the next training. Hit subscribe, share this with a friend, and you know what? Meet me back here every single week. We're not just talking about change, we're making it. Because when you know better, you do better. And when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody.